Welcome back. In this segment, we're going to explore 5 groundbreaking predictions for Bitcoin in the coming decade, stepping beyond mere price speculations. All this while keeping in mind that 114 countries are currently in some stage of CBDC development, as well as the potential for artificial intelligence to redefine job landscapes globally. It's important to note that the topic of money in Bitcoin goes well beyond investing. From Sumeria to Egypt, Rome, Germany, and Great Britain, almost all of these empires have risen and fallen according to the strength and weakness of their economies. Previous civilizations went through 900 years of the Dark Ages with very little scientific, political, or cultural advancement, mostly because the world lacked a trusted system of money. History has shown us that this is an absolute requirement for a people to advance. Will Bitcoin or CBDCs be the winner in the future? Will these technologies become detrimental to the freedoms we currently enjoy? Or will life mostly remain the same? Let's explore with prediction number 1. Let's set the stage. Imagine a world where countries are gradually moving towards central bank digital currencies, but there is still large opposition. Bitcoin's price is doing well, but mostly remains a fringe asset, viewed as an investment vehicle to many in mainstream finance. As many countries have de-dollarized, there's no one left to fund government debt through the usual purchase of treasury bonds. But the central bank, also known as the buyer of last resort, the money printer starts to churn like never before. Inflation gets out of hand, and unemployment skyrockets due to a mixture of budget tightening and jobs lost to AI. This includes a large percentage of the middle class. The government offers a solution, UBIs, or Universal Basic Income. The catch? You can only receive it if you voluntarily consolidate your bank accounts to a government CBDC program. Once these digital currencies are released, every business is mandated to legally accept CBDCs as payment. They gain rapid acceptance among the populace. Out of convenience, even those who were against CBDCs start to use them. Those who refuse are mandated to do so in order to pay their taxes. In spite of this, for a few years, everything seems to be going smoothly. Nobody really notices the difference between credit cards, debit cards, and CBDCs. But while UBIs fixed unemployment, the debt issue was never resolved.
Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate.
The worst day on Wall Street since the crash of 1987.
Many governments are unable to make the interest payments to service their debt and payouts to citizens to fund their liabilities. Due to a massive increase in U.S. money supply in the preceding years, trust in the world's reserve currency is completely lost. And then, bam.
People with savings of less than $130,000 will pay a one-off tax of 6.75%. Those with anything more in their accounts will forfeit 9.9% of their savings.
Global economic collapse. Similar to Cyprus in 2013, central banks demand governments respond by taking drastic measures like seizing a percentage of people's bank balances to cover the debt. This audacious act triggers an unprecedented awakening among the public, and people come to the immediate realization that CBDCs are not anything like debit cards or the bank accounts they used to have, creating a rush towards Bitcoin unlike anything we've seen before. For nations that haven't fully embraced CBDCs, the floodgates open as people flock to Bitcoin en masse. But what about nations fully committed to their own CBDC programs? Here's where it gets interesting. Money leaving the system only accelerates the problem, and governments respond by placing spending restrictions, disallowing any Bitcoin or crypto purchases. Citizens are left with no other option but to resort to peer-to-peer methods to acquire Bitcoin, bypassing official channels entirely. Rampant CBDC money printing, now called money injecting, leads to a further erosion of trust on an international level. Countries start demanding Bitcoin, and only Bitcoin, for international trade. This proves to be the tipping point. Behind the scenes, central banks and politicians try to sabotage Bitcoin while hypocritically accumulating it themselves. In some of the G20 countries, they even go to the extent of outright banning and seizing it. Due to the instability, manipulation, and ever-changing governmental policies, for a period of time, its price experiences roller coaster volatility. Individuals find themselves wealthy one day and nearly impoverished the next. Eventually, when the government-run central banks feel they have amassed enough Bitcoin in reserve, they have no choice left but to finally legitimize it. But here comes the twist. These same central banks launch massive government-led Bitcoin mining operations in a last-ditch attempt to dominate the network. But the worldwide competition only makes this task more difficult. After years of struggle, their efforts utterly fail, but large government-run mining operations provide economic stability to most countries. The fallout? A major collapse of numerous redundant government agencies. Governments find themselves downsized to a reasonable level, simply because they can no longer print money at will. And here's the sobering aftermath. Wars become increasingly rare. Now that nations can't just print money to fund conflicts, the true cost of war becomes glaringly apparent. In essence, Bitcoin introduces a layer of financial accountability that forces governments to reconsider the consequences of their actions. But it's not all rosy news. This leads us to prediction number 2. Bitcoin as a social equalizer. In a world largely dominated by artificial intelligence and automation, employment is no longer the primary income stream for many. Here, the rules of the game have shifted. It's not about how much you can earn, but how much you can save. Bitcoin's deflationary nature ensures the currency grows more valuable over time, encouraging individuals to defer non-essential purchases. This prudence, while financially sound, sends ripples through our economic systems. Businesses tighten their belts, hiring becomes a luxury, and consumer spending dwindles. This is the paradox of thrift in full display. The ones who anticipated this trend are thriving, yet there's a stark contrast with those who did not. People and governments alike. When spending falters, so does someone's income. As this cycle continues, the velocity of money slows to a crawl, intensifying the economic standstill. But here's where it gets interesting. By 2033, Layer 2 solutions have made using Bitcoin for everyday transactions seamless. Yet there's a collective hesitation. Think about it. If jobs are scarce, but your Bitcoin wallet can double or triple in purchasing power without lifting a finger, wouldn't you hold on tightly to every Satoshi? Where accepted, you might find yourself spending CBDCs or altcoins first. They're designed for transactions, not long-term wealth preservation. And in this speculative future, Bitcoin becomes the ultimate store of value, seldom exchanged, fiercely saved. If this projection unfolds into reality, we must ask ourselves, what becomes of an economy where spending is the exception, not the rule? Can prosperity and growth be sustained in a system where the very notion of wealth creation shifts beneath your feet? But it's not all doom and gloom either. To many of the world's unbanked in countries where artificial intelligence and automation are not used and life has remained roughly the same, Bitcoin has become a social equalizer. Accessible to anyone with a smartphone and internet connection, it demolishes traditional banking barriers, such as minimum balance requirements, lack of necessary documentation, or simply living too far away. It empowers the unbanked with the ability to participate in basic financial services, enabling them to save, send, and receive money without the need for traditional banking infrastructure. For the first time in their lives, they have property and rights associated with it. This democratization of financial services is transformative in remote or underdeveloped regions, where even the simplest banking task can be a day's journey away. Bitcoin doesn't just offer them a wallet, it opens a gateway to the global economy. As for the West and more developed countries in 2033, inequality, corruption, and societal issues will remain, and in some ways will be amplified by the diversifying conflict between CBDCs and Bitcoin. Good for some, bad for others. Not merely a prediction, but the standard. Prediction number 3. Bitcoin's privacy nightmare. As we delve deeper into the world of Bitcoin 10 years from now, for prediction number 3, we confront a vital aspect of its nature. Every transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain is public. This transparency, a foundational element, poses a significant privacy challenge, especially in an age where AI is ever vigilant and personal data has become a tool for surveillance. In our envisioned future, the struggle for financial privacy intensifies. As the CBDC program begins to receive major pushback in countries like America and the government starts losing this battle for unprecedented control of your finances, they look to its public ledger as a surveillance mechanism. Corporations, equipped with sophisticated AI, develop methods of identifying, tracing, and tracking every transaction to a man. Like today, they trade our personal data as an asset for influence and profit. Every Bitcoin transaction, traceable and permanent, risks becoming a part of this invasive scrutiny. During the phase where CBDCs are breaking down and governments are secretly accumulating, like Nigeria's e-Naira CBDC program, they ban it. Similar to Franklin Roosevelt's infamous gold confiscation Executive Order 6212 during the Great Depression, governments demand citizens voluntarily give their Bitcoin over in an attempt to seize and confiscate it. forcing them to sell at below market valuations in the interest of preserving national security. Examples are made of people who are caught using or storing their Bitcoin and refuse to turn it over. Regulation around Bitcoin, private wallets, and decentralized exchanges becomes increasingly hard to maneuver. As there is no central entity for governments to hold accountable or make demands to, we believe that in order to prevent or discourage future innovation around privacy, government agencies will attempt to fine or jail the creators and investors responsible for bringing these platforms and products to market, fining and punishing them for the actions of their platform's users. Despite this, the open source nature of Bitcoin allows the community to innovate. But like Satoshi, recognition for these great minds will have to be placed on the back burner. As governments lose control of their CBDC programs and need to accumulate Bitcoin, the penalties for not selling and using privacy platforms to obstruct are high. This forces people to focus on issues of privacy, finding refuge in Layer 2 solutions, and the use of alternative privacy-centric coins like Monero, which become popular for complete anonymity. Interestingly enough, like the era of gold confiscation, when this confiscation period ends, the price of Bitcoin skyrockets to levels that make even the most extreme predictions today look conservative. However, the plot thickens as we consider the potential threat if governments seek to centralize Bitcoin's mining infrastructure. This centralization brings about its own set of challenges: the power to potentially reject transactions or block certain wallet addresses. It's a scenario that raises questions and diverse opinions about censorship and control within the Bitcoin network. The maximalist vision confronts this reality head-on, advocating for decentralization not just in spirit, but in practice. They argue for a diversified global mining network, resistant to control by any single entity, ensuring that Bitcoin remains a tool for financial liberation, not oppression. And that wraps up our third key Bitcoin prediction. While I initially promised to cover 5 predictions today, the next 2, along with a bonus one, are so impactful that they deserve a dedicated video. Join me next week to explore these intriguing forecasts which may redefine our understanding of Bitcoin. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss these essential insights. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the predictions we discussed. Do they seem plausible, or do I need a tinfoil hat? Leave your comments below. Your insights are invaluable to our discussion. Keep contemplating Bitcoin's possibilities, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys.